All right, good evening, everyone. I want to begin by welcoming everyone to the Erev Shabbos, the Thursday night virtual drasha. It's an incredible zechus to be able to learn with all of you. I want to give a very special thank you to Jeremy Lassen and to Maishi Abramson, who really are the individuals who work so hard in the background of all of this to be able to make all of this happen. Our executive director, Julia Shainman, for working so hard in order to make sure that we could continue to do as much as possible in the shul in these crazy times. And I also want to again thank Esther Resnick, who is our ASL interpreter, who is signing for the deaf community, members of the deaf community who are joining us here on this shir tonight. An incredible privilege to be able to share Torah with our greater community. I want to begin tonight by thanking the sponsors of this shir. To thank Selma Wolf for dedicating this drasha in loving memory of her husband, William Zev ben Nachum. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, Neshama will have an aliyah and his family in Necham. And it's wonderful to see Selma and her family joining us here this evening. To thank Marlene Resnick for dedicating the drasha tonight in memory of Baruch Shimon ben Yehuda Leib and Ben Sion Michal ben Baruch Shimon. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an aliyah and the families in Nechama. And to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar. First, I neglected to wish everyone a good Chodesh. It's the beginning of Rosh Chodesh Iyar, a new month, untold possibilities. So to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar, Menachem and Susie Schoenfeld, Le'ili Nishmos, their grandparents, whose beautiful lessons and teachings continue to inspire and live within their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. For Moshe ben Shimon Lev Halevi, Sarah Leah bas Dov Ber Halevi, Menachem Mendel ben Dov Ber, Sarah Yittel bas Yaakov Sender, Noach ben Avram, Fega bas Meir, David Shimon ben Yisrael, Sarah bas Yaakov. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the precious neshamas have an aliyah and the families a nechama. I want to begin this evening by sharing with you an incredible Gemara. And the truth is, it's a Gemara that I've often thought a lot about over the years. And whenever I come to these parashos of Tazria and Mitzorah, which discuss the halachos of tzaras, the halachos will loosely translate as leprosy, quite extensively, this Gemara always comes to mind. And it's a Gemara Maseches Sanhedrin. The Gemara appears Sanhedrin Tzadik Ches Amud Aleph, Sanhedrin 98a. So the Gemara says as follows: Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi ashkach le'Eliyahu. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi found Eliyahu Hanavi. Okay, halavai, we should all be on the level where we bump into Eliyahu Hanavi. So he's minding his own business, he's walking around, he bumps into Eliyahu Hanavi. Interestingly enough, where's the site of this rendezvous? Not that it's that relevant for the story, but it's just interesting. Where did he find Eliyahu Hanavi? At the entranceway of the cave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Remember again, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had to hide from the Romans for a number of years. He was miraculously sustained in a cave. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is no longer there. But for some reason, again, not our topic for tonight, we'll save that for a different shir. For some reason, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is by this cave, Eliyahu Hanavi is by this cave where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai hid out. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, great sage Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, runs in to Eliyahu Hanavi. And he asks him a simple question. Amar lei, Eimas asi Mashiach. He asks him, tell me, Eliyahu, when is Mashiach coming? Simple question. When is Mashiach coming? Amar lei, Zil shaili lididei. A shocking answer. Eliyahu says to Rabbi Shimon Levi, you know what? Go ask him yourself. I don't know when Eliyahu Hanavi is coming. Why don't you go and ask him yourself? Teacher Rabbi Shimon Levi says, so Vehecha Yosef. So Rabbi Shimon Levi says, I would be happy to ask Eliyahu Hanavi. Tell me, where could I find him? Right? So he says to Eliyahu, where could I find? I'm sorry. Rabbi Shimon Levi says to Eliyahu, I would be happy to ask Mashiach himself when he's coming, but where exactly could I find Mashiach? Apischa deromi. To which Eliyahu Hanavi responds, if you're looking for Mashiach, you could find him at the entranceway to the city of Rome. Mashiach resides at the entranceway of the city of Rome. Umay simone. So Rabbi Shimon Levi says, no, and how will I know which guy is Mashiach? There's probably plenty of people at the entranceway to Rome. How will I know which one is Mashiach? Yosef beine anie sovle chaloim. Says if you want to find Mashiach, you could find him sitting amongst those who struggle with illness. Struggle with illness. And Rashi points out what type of illness? Minugoim. Tzara'as. Tzara'as, historically, those stricken with tzara'as, which will translate for our purposes now as leprosy, right? Were often either sent to leper colonies, or if they weren't sent to leper colonies, they were not permitted to live amongst the general populace. They were sent to the outskirts of the city. So Eliyahu tells Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, if you want to find Mashiach, Mashiach dwells at the entranceway to Rome, and he lives amongst the lepers. He lives amongst the Mitzoraim. The Kula, so says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi to Eliyahu Hanavi, okay, there's probably a number of lepers who are living at the entranceway to Rome. How will I know which one is Mashiach? So to which, listen to what Eliyahu Hanavi says. The Kulan Sharu va'asiri bechad zimna. All the other lepers, you'll see, they change all of their bandages at once, right? They're covered in wounds, so they change all of their bandages at once. But Mashiach, ihu sharichad va'asir chad. Mashiach only changes his bandages one at a time. Why? Amar dilma miba'ina deloi akif. Because Mashiach doesn't know when he's going to be called. When is God going to summon him to finally come and redeem the Jewish people? So Mashiach is concerned, if all of my wounds are uncovered, it's going to take me some time to rebandage. So instead, what does Mashiach do? He goes ahead and only unbandages one wound, redresses that wound, and then moves on to the next one. This way, should he be called to God to spring into redemptive action, he's ready to go. Rabbi Shimon Levi makes the journey to Rome. Remember again, the cave, Aru Yeshua B'Yochai, is in Eretz Yisrael. Eliyahu Hanavi just told Rabbi Shimon Levi that if you want to find Mashiach, you have to travel to Rome. So Rabbi Shimon Levi decides to go. Azul legabe. So Rabbi Yeshua Levi travels to Rome. He comes to the gates of the city. He sees all of the Mitzoraim, all of the lepers there. He sees the one man who's not changing all of his bandages at once. Everyone else is changing all of their bandages at once. And this individual is changing one bandage at a time. Amar lei, Shalom Aleichem Rebbe Umori. Rabbi Shimon Levi goes over to this man, who he has now identified as Mashiach, and he says, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, peace be unto you, my Rebbe, my teacher. Amar lei, Shalom Aleich Bar Levi. And Mashiach, of course, recognized Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. And he says, Shalom Aleichem to you. Bar Levi means Ben Levi. Shalom Aleichem to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. What brings you to the gates of Rome? Amar lei, le'imas asimar. To which Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Mashiach, I come here to ask but one question. When are you coming? When are you coming? We've been waiting for you for so long. We've been patient for so long. Aimas le'imas asimar. When are you finally going to come and redeem us? Amar lei, to which Mashiach responded, Hayom. I'm coming today. I'm coming today. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi gets incredibly excited. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, overwhelmed by this, he heads back to Eretz Yisrael. He meets up again with Eliyahu Hanavi, and then a day goes by, 2 days go by, 3 days go by, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says to Eliyahu Hanavi, Mashiach didn't seem to be telling the truth. Mashiach said that he's coming today, and it's already a number of days since I've seen him at the gateways of Rome. What's happened? To which Eliyahu Hanavi responds, when Mashiach said he's coming today, what that meant is he's prepared to come today. But are we prepared for him to come today? Mashiach is prepared every day to come. Mashiach only changes his bandages one at a time. Mashiach is always ready. But Eliyahu Hanavi says to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, perhaps the problem is not with messianic tardiness. Perhaps the problem is not that Mashiach is delayed. Mashiach is ready. Perhaps we're not ready. Perhaps we're not prepared. And that's why Mashiach has not yet come. A very striking Gemara on a variety of levels. But I'll tell you what caught my attention this year. First of all, I want to say that, generally, when we have these parashas of Tazria and Tzorah, we get into the details of Tzara'as. And you'll look through the parsha, it's a very detailed parsha. This lesion looks like this, it's this color, it's this size, the hair is white, the hair is this, the hair is that. Generally, these details don't usually capture the imagination, but I think, especially this year, the Metzora takes on a little bit of a different meaning. The Metzora, the person afflicted with saras, must live in isolation. Badad yeshev michutz lamachana. He's separated from everyone. And I will say that this concept never resonated with me like it does now. Because the truth is, I think really until just a few weeks ago, none of us ever really felt what isolation was like. What does it mean to be away from people? What does it mean to be sequestered from people? What does it mean to be cut off from community? And now we're seeing that a little bit what it means. But I'll tell you what caught my attention. You see, the imagery of the Gemara is quite dramatic. The Gemara doesn't just simply say that Mashiach is a leper, that Mashiach has tsaras. But the imagery that the image the Gemara paints is that Mashiach is covered head to toe with tsaras. He has bandages everywhere, wounds everywhere, lesions everywhere, covered head to toe in tsaras. When we think about the Metzora, the person afflicted with tsaras, which again we'll loosely translate as leprosy, so we often assume this is the person who presents with a lesion on some part of his body. But Mashiach doesn't just have a lesion. Mashiach is covered head to toe in saras. And such a case is actually discussed in this week's parsha. The Torah states in Parak Yud Gimel, Psukim Yud Beis Yud Gimel, chapter 13, verses 12 through 13. The Gemara discusses such an individual. V'im paroach tifrach hatzaras ba'ar, v'kista hatzaras kala ar nega merosho va'ad raglav. What if you have someone who is covered head to toe in saras? Head to toe. Remember, the paradigmatic case that the Torah discusses is where the individual presents with some type of lesion. The individual presents with some type of discoloration. In this case, the Torah is describing someone who's covered head to toe in saras. So what's his status? The Ra'ah Kohen, v'nei kista saras is called besara. The Kohen will see the person and he will see that he's covered from head to toe in saras. The tiher es hanega. The Torah says the Kohen will declare this person ritually pure. Ritually pure. Kulo hafach lavan taharhu. Perhaps the most enigmatic concept in the entire parsha. The entire parsha, we're talking about the person has a discoloration, and if the discoloration is, let's say, a person has a white blotch on their skin, that is called saras. And if it's called saras, again loosely translated as leprosy, so there's a whole procedure. You have to be sequestered. You're actually sent out of the camp. You have to dwell alone, and then you come back in. There's a purification process. It is a prolonged process, and not only that, it's an expensive process because you have to go ahead and bring sacrifices in order to affect your ritual purity. And then the Torah introduces us to the case of the person who is covered head to toe in saras. His entire body blanketed by saras. And what's his status? What's his status? He's tahar. He's ritually pure. And the commentaries go crazy because they simply can't understand this. So let me get this right. Somebody has one little lesion and he's ritually impure for 7 days, sequestered outside of the temple, whole purification process. Another individual is covered head to toe. There's not a part of his body that's unafflicted, that's unaffected. And yet he's ritually pure? So what's the pshat? How do you understand this? And the commentaries go in a variety of different directions. What I want to share with you are two dramatically opposite approaches. The approaches of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov and the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Two Hasidic greats, two Hasidic masters. Yet to understand this concept in two dramatically different ways. Rebbe Nachman writes, he says something amazing. Shebaheres kigris tamei, uparcha bekulatar. It's enigmatic. A little bit of tsaras, like a gris. Even if you have a little tsaras like the size of a penny, it could make a person tamei, ritually impure, and yet covered head to toe, he's totally tar. Ki daika lepamim kisheba letachlis ha'irida. Rabbi Nachman says something amazing. You see, the whole process of the Metzora, the whole process of tsaras, is there to affect cathartic change and personalistic rehabilitation. You have to understand something. In Judaism, there's no such thing, almost no such thing, as just simple punitive punishment. We don't believe, our system doesn't really allow for punishment for the sake of punishment. The punishments that we have when there's onesh, right? Onesh is there as a form of kapar, as a form of atonement and a form of rehabilitation. That's why, for example, in Judaism, we actually don't have a jail system. There's no such concept as jail in Yiddishkeit. Why not? Because Judaism understood way before legal systems of today that putting people in a cage doesn't do anything for them. It doesn't make them better people. It doesn't address their shortcomings. It doesn't rehabilitate them. We have a holding cell because sometimes they didn't know what to do with people, so they had to put them in a holding cell. But to cage a person doesn't do anything. We know this because we see the effects of incarceration on people. So Yiddishkeit believes in punishments that are there to rehabilitate. Now the truth is sometimes the transgression can be so severe that the only rehabilitation is death. We have execution. We do have we do have death sentences because sometimes what a person has done is so that the only way to rehabilitate is to end life. But the entire process of the Mitzorah is not to penalize him. It's to rehabilitate him. It's to help him. Mitzorah, you've gone down the wrong path. Like remember again, the Gemara discusses that there were five different transgressions which could bring about the punishment of tsaras. We're most familiar with lashon hara. So a person slanders another individual, right? So what are we doing to the slanderer? We're going to patch him. We're going to tell him bad boy. All right. Instead, we want to affect change. We say to this person, you're a good person, but for whatever the reason, you're making really poor life decisions. So let's help you get your life back on track. And there's a process. So we have to remove you from society because you are having a deleterious effect on those around you. You're sowing the seeds of machlokes. You're sowing the seeds of discontent. We have to remove you the same way that when a parent sees that his children are fighting and the parent sees that one child is the instigator, the parent has to pull that child out of the mix. The Mitzorah is a child who has lost his way, a child of God who has lost his way. So we pull him out of the mix in order to rehabilitate. But Rebbe Nachman says something amazing. That's true. That's true if it's a lesion. But if you turned all white, if you're covered head to toe in saras, then says the Rebbe, you're really far gone. And if you're that far gone, this normative process will not work for you. You have to do something much more dramatic. What it is, you're going to have to figure that out. Rehabilitation is still possible, but the process as outlined by the Torah will not work for a person like that. You have a lesion here, a lesion there, you have some problems, you have some issues, there are certain things inside of you that are broken. The process of tsaras will help to rehabilitate you. But you're covered head to toe, you're so tzibrachen, you're so broken, you're so damaged, you're in such a state of disrepair that this process will not work for you. Again, is there a process that could repair you? Of course. No one is beyond repair. And no one is beyond salvation. But you're going to have to find a different process to bring yourself back to God. Because the process as outlined over here by Tsaras will not work for you. The individual covered from head to toe is too far gone for the normative process of the Mitzorah to work for him. Comes along the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Rebbe says something just the opposite. He says, what's saras? He says, saras, we know, I've said it a couple of times already, we loosely translate it as leprosy. But saras is not leprosy. Leprosy is an actual physical malady. Saras is a physical manifestation of a spiritual illness. When a person has saras, what that shows is they are spiritually ill. But a lot of times in life, we walk around spiritually ill and we don't even recognize our illness. So tsaras, it's just like, sometimes a person could be sick. And again, this is such a nyane diyoma, right? What are we concerned about so much with the coronavirus? That a person could be asymptomatic. And such a person like that could even be more dangerous. Because a person knows that they're ill, they could take the proper steps. But a person doesn't even know that they're ill. A person doesn't even know that they're ill. Chas v'shalom, they can infect everyone around them. So the Rebbe says, what saras tells you is something's wrong. Something's wrong. So what happens? There's inner darkness inside of you. There's inner negativity inside of you. There's brokenness inside of you. And that stuff that you sometimes try to keep inside of you, all the darkness, all the negativity, it reaches a level where it begins to come out. And how does it manifest itself? In a lesion on my body. That lesion on my body shows me and shows everyone else around me that there's darkness inside of me that has to come out, that has to be expunged. I'm walking around with something in my heart and in my soul that's not good. And it's to the point where it's already, I can't keep it inside anymore. It's bubbling up. So it says, listen to what the Lubavitcher Rebbe says. Listen to this. The Rebbe says so beautifully. He says, when all of the negativity comes out and covers a person head to toe, that shows that a person is so holy on the inside that the negativity cannot find anything to hold on to in the panemius, on the inside of the individual. The only thing the darkness could attach itself to is the outside of the individual. So you hear this? Such a dramatic difference. Rebbe Nachman says that when you're covered head to toe in saras, wow, you're in really bad shape. You're in really bad shape. And why are you tahar? Why are you pure? You're pure simply because we don't know what to do with you. Truth is, we just really can't help you. We just really can't help you. The process we have over here are for people who are a little bit broken. You're really very broken. So you're salvageable, but you're gonna have to find another process. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says, when you turn white head to toe, all of the negativity comes out. That shows that you're so holy on the inside that the darkness finds no place to attach itself inside of you. So it all has to come out. And that's why the Rebbe says such a person is tar. Such a person is ritually impure. Because if you have such a pure soul and you have such a pure heart that the darkness can't attach itself to you on the inside, so the only thing it can do is attach itself to your body, what a level you're on. What a heightened stage, spiritual stage you exist on, and therefore you're tahar. Fundamental machlokas. But the truth is, what's clear, so if we plug this back, so what struck me is the Gemara is telling us that Moshiach is a Metzora. Mashiach is a leper, I'll use that loosely again, and he's covered head to toe in saras. He's covered head to toe. So what this tells us is, whether you like the approach of Rebbe Nachman, or whether you like the approach of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, what it's saying is, and listen to this very carefully, that Mashiach can be a person who has faults. Tzaras represents faults. Tzaras represents shortcomings. Tzaras represents that which is broken. Again, the head to toe Metzora, Rabbi Nachman says, so much is broken in that person. Lubavitcher Rebbe says, so little is broken in that person. But the place where they meet is something's broken in the person. Because tzara'as does not set in. Tzara'as does not go ahead and take hold on people who are whole, on people who are complete. Tzara'as only appears on people who have faults, who have shortcomings, who have things inside of them which are in a state of disrepair. And my dear friends, do you hear what the Gemara is saying? That Mashiach is someone who has faults. That Mashiach is someone who has shortcomings. That Mashiach is not perfect. And I think the Gemara is teaching us an incredible lesson. That our faults do not preclude us or do not limit us from achieving greatness. You see, we often erroneously assume that greatness is synonymous with perfection. That if you want to be great, then you have to be perfect. And the truth is, I've often thought, I very much enjoy reading biographies of great people. Tzaddikim, different people, because the truth is, it always intrigues me, like what makes great people great. And I think sometimes biographers, in an effort to highlight the greatness of their subject, of the person who they're writing about, do a little bit of a disservice to the reader. Because sometimes when you read about great people, you hear about all of their incredible midas, all of their incredible character traits, all of their accomplishments. Rarely in a biography will you ever find a chapter that's titled Most Significant Faults. Right? And let's go to the faults of childhood, of young adulthood, older adulthood, but every single great person has faults. The Torah Kedosha goes out of its way to tell us about Moshe Rabbeinu's mistake. You ever wonder about this? Moshe Rabbeinu devoted 80 years of his life to leading the Jewish people, from the age of 40 to the age of 120. During that time, he made one mistake. He hit the rock. He hit the rock. You ever wonder to yourself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why don't you have a little rachmanas on the man? He made one mistake. You couldn't just leave out that detail? One mistake in 80 years of leadership. You couldn't just kind of put that on the side. You have to put it front and center and repeat it no less than 3 times in the Torah. One mistake. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was teaching us such an incredible lesson, which is greatness is not synonymous with perfection. Greatness could be achieved even with faults, and even with shortcomings, and even with things that are broken, and even with things that are in a state of disrepair. V'haraya, the proof, Moshe Rabbeinu made mistakes, and yet the same man of Moshe Rabbeinu who made a mistake, what does the Torah say about him? Lo kam b'Yisrael ki Moshe od. How could that be? There's no one perfect, and the answer is there's no one perfect. There's no one perfect, because perfection and greatness are not synonymous. Because perfection is not found by man. Perfection is by HaKadosh Baruch Hu and by HaKadosh Baruch Hu only. And this is the great mistake we make. Because so many of us assume that we don't have the capacity to be great because we don't have the ability to be perfect. I could be good. I could be maybe even very good. Or maybe I could even be really good. But great? That's not for people like me. Right? Great is for people from the biographies who no one writes about their faults, no one writes about their shortcomings. Those are the people who become great. People like me, I'm okay. On a good day, I'm good. On a really good day, I'm bordering maybe on really good. But that's it. So comes the Gemara and says, by the way, you know who Mashiach is? You know who Mashiach is? Mashiach is a leper. Mashiach has saras. And not only does he have saras, but he's covered in head to toe. What does that mean? Does that mean that he's a ridiculous tzaddik like the Lubavitcher Rebbe? Does it mean he's a person who needs a lot of work like Rebbe Nachman? I don't know. When he comes, we'll find out. But what it does tell us is that Mashiach is an imperfect individual who has faults and yet is still able to rise to greatness. But in order to, now that we've established that you can go ahead and achieve greatness even with faults, isn't this something that we struggle with? We all have faults. We all have shortcomings. So how do you achieve greatness? I'm not going to say despite your faults. Say, how do you achieve greatness with all of your faults? And so I'd like to suggest this evening four different ideas, short ideas, to ultimately, again, how we achieve a level of greatness without perfection. Greatness with faults, greatness with shortcomings. Number 1, the first step to achieving greatness without perfection is acknowledge your shortcomings. Acknowledge your faults. So many times, the reason why we fail to gain real traction in life is because we're unwilling to admit that we're broken. And I don't mean broken in a holistic way. I'm unwilling to admit that there are parts of me that are in a state of disrepair. People spend so much energy trying to explain why they're not broken, or if they are broken, why it's not their fault. My mother didn't love me enough. My father didn't play catch with me. My second grade teacher gave me a B instead of an A. We have a whole litany of reasons why it is that we have faults, but it's not my fault. It's not my fault. So my friends, we've spoken about this many times. Owning your faults could be scary, but it's empowering. Because once you own them, then you could address them. So how do we come to acknowledge our faults? So for most of us, if you notice by the Mitzorah, the entire process of tzaras cannot unfold without a kohen. It's very interesting, right? Meaning at the end of the day, the Mitzorah, the person who himself is afflicted, could be the greatest Talmid Chacham. He spent 25 years in yeshiva learning all about tzaras. But when he gets that lesion, he cannot determine if he's tamei or if he's tar, if he's pure or impure. Instead, what does he have to do? He has to go to the Kohen. He has to go to the Kohen. Because in life, You have to find someone who is able to give you real and honest feedback. Most of us like to surround ourselves with people who make us feel good. And make us feel good usually means telling us that we're right, even when we're wrong. Everyone needs a Kohen. The Kohen is that person who loves you so much that they're going to tell you, by the way, you have tsaras. By the way, that thing, no, it's not a mosquito bite. That's tsaras. That means something's broken. That means something in a state of disrepair. And I love you. I love you. I love you even if you're broken. And I respect you even if you're broken. But you can't run from your tsaras. You know, there's an amazing halacha, and this just struck me for some reason for the first time this year. The Torah in the beginning of Parshas Tazria speaks about the process of tsaras. The Torah says, listen to this process. An individual has tsaras. He shows up in front of the Kohen, right? The Kohen looks at it. So what does the Kohen do? The Kohen's not sure. So what does he do? He sends the guy away. He says, come back in a week. Come back in a week, right? Then Baharis, he's not sure what it is. Go, come back in a week and I'll look at it again. So it struck me, like, why doesn't the Kohen say, listen, go home, write me a letter, look at it in a week. You see what it looks like now? Look, re-examine it in a week and see, did it grow? Did it get darker? Is it more sunken? Did it grow in size? Why does the guy have to come back to the Kohen? And the Das Sekina Mibali Tosis, listen to these words. Ki ha'adam roed davar tadir b'chol yom. Because when a person sees something every day, v'ugadol ma'at ma'at, if you're looking at the same thing every day, even if that thing you're looking at gets a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, eino mafchin b'gidulo. You don't see it. Why don't you see it? Because you're looking at the same thing every single day. And when you look at the same thing every single day, you lose objective perspective. You don't see it for what it is because you can't tell, was it bigger today than yesterday? I don't know, it looks the same to me. So the Kohen says, you come back to me, I'll be able to tell if it got bigger. And what an incredible insight. So many of us have been broken in the same way for so long. I've had the same faults. You know, it's a very sobering thought when I try to do a moment of real introspection. And I realize that the things that are broken inside of me, it's not like new. It's not like, wow, that just broke today. That was never broken before. If I do a moment of true introspection, the things that are broken today are the same things that were broken last week, and most probably the same things that were broken 5 years ago. Everybody needs a Kohen. Because more often than not, we do not see our own blemishes. We do not see our own lesions. We don't see our own saras. So you have to have a Kohen. Whether that Kohen is your spouse, whether that Kohen is a parent, whether that Kohen is a trusted friend, whoever it is, but everyone has to have a Kohen. A person with whom you have a relationship that you feel secure enough that if that person gives you real feedback, you might be a little offended at first. And you might be a little bit upset and a little bit standoffish because no one really likes to get constructive criticism. As much as we say, please give me constructive criticism, what I really mean is, don't give me constructive criticism. I don't want to hear it. I'm just fine. But at the end of the day, if you get it from someone who you love, even if it hurts a little bit at first, you'll internalize it. So lesson number one, if you want to achieve greatness despite your faults, find your Kohen. If you have to have someone in your life, a spouse, a parent, a friend, a teacher, a Rebbe, whoever it is, you have to find someone who cares about you enough that you could say, you know what? Tell me, when you see me, when you look at me, what do you see? When you look at me, do you see any tzaras? And if you see tzaras, tell me, because I want to be able to fix it. Because often a person can't see what's right in front of their eyes when they're looking at the same thing day after day. Number two, achieving greatness with our perfections. I want to share with you an incredible insight of the Baal Shem Tov. We're mamish getting to the great Hasidic masters, Rebbe Nachman, Babish Rebbe, Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov says something dramatically amazing. The Rebbe writes, he quotes the Mishnah, Av Ezehu Chacham Halomed Mikol Adam. Who is the one who is wise? One who learns from every person. Okay, so this is a concept that we are very well aware of, right? We've all known this concept for a long time. Who is wise? One who is able to learn from every individual. But listen to how the Baal Shem Tov teaches, listen to how he translates that phrase. What does it mean to be wise and learn from every person? I'm going to quote to you his words. Afilu me adam ra, shera dvar avera bo. The Baal Shem Tov says, when you see something negative in someone else, know that that person is a reflection of you. When you see something negative in another person, that person is your mirror. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us this ability to see negativity in others. Because if I pick up in something negative in someone else, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowing me to see what's really broken inside of me. You know, there's the phrase, the world is your mirror. Not only is the world your mirror, but every other person is your mirror. You ever meet, we all know people like this. There are some people that are so incredible at deconstructing and highlighting the deficiencies and the faults of others. You know, if you know people like that, we all know those people are often the most flawed personalities. People who have criticism and critique for every individual. They could tell you what's wrong with this one, what's wrong with this one, what's wrong with this one. They could see the faults in everyone. But the irony of ironies is they don't realize that the faults they see in every other person are really just reflecting the faults they have in themselves. To achieve a level of greatness with your faults, you have to become aware. So step number one is find your Kohen. Find a trusted friend, a trusted mentor, a trusted teacher who you are comfortable and confident to get feedback from. Recognize that when you see something negative, Ezu Chacham, who is wise? Halomed Mikal Adam, a person who is able to learn from what he sees in someone else. When I see something broken in you, really, I'm not seeing what's broken in you. I don't know you. How could I see what's broken in you? I don't know your life. I don't know your circumstances. I don't know what happens with you behind closed doors. So how could I really see something broken in you? But when I think I see something broken in you, what I'm really seeing is something broken in me. Ezehu Chacham, Halomed Mikal Adam. So much of achieving greatness with your flaws and with your deficiencies is acknowledging, owning, and recognizing what they are. Step number 3. If you notice again, Mashiach does something very interesting. As Mashiach sits by the gates of Rome, so the Gemara says something dramatic. The Gemara says that, actually Rashi points out over here, that Mashiach helps the other lepers. He helps the other lepers. That when he's not changing his bandages, he helps the other lepers change their bandages. Incredible. What's the lesson? You see, Mashiach channels his faults into helping others with the same exact challenge. You know, it's almost like lahavdil, like if a person is suffering with alcoholism, so if they go to a 12-step program, you go to AA, you get a sponsor. So who is your sponsor? Who is your sponsor? Your sponsor has to be an alcoholic in recovery, right? It's not the pshat that they get some guy who's never touched a drink in his life. And okay, you know what? You teach this guy you teach him sobriety. No. If you want to be a mentor, right? I need someone who understands me. I need someone who understands what I'm going through. So in AA, you get the mentor who's hopefully has a number of years of sobriety. Mashiach uses his saras, his experience, channels his faults, quote unquote, into helping others, which I think teaches us an incredible lesson. Use your faults to develop a sense of empathy. You see, when a person is realistic about who they are and what they are, and I recognize my shortcomings, and I recognize my what's broken inside of me, something amazing happens. You become so much more accepting of everyone around you. When you recognize that you have pieces of you that are broken, suddenly again, you're much more able to tolerate the broken kite in others. Mashiach, who himself is the Mitzorah, what does he do? He spends his time helping the other lepers. He spends his time helping the other Mitzorahim. After you find your Kohen, and after you recognize that every single other person is your mirror, and the negativity you see in them may be a mirror for the negativity you possess inside of yourself, that allows you to become a more empathic and understanding individual. So many times in life we get upset and we get annoyed with other individuals because they fall short, whether it's in the context of a marriage, whether it's the context of a relationship or other relationships, whatever it might be. We have to work on becoming more empathic and more understanding individuals. And how do you do that? By looking at your own wounds. You can become the AA sponsor when you yourself have had some sobriety. Mashiach, the leper, is able to help other lepers because he understands the pain of their wounds. He understands what it means to be a Mitzorah. Use your faults and the realization of your faults to become a more empathic, feeling, and compassionate individual. And that empathy will help each of your relationships become so much more meaningful and so much more impactful. And finally, number 4, change your bandages. So what does Mashiach do? So Mashiach, as we know, only changes one bandage at a time, like the Gemara says. But change your bandages. What does that mean? You know, a person might say, what's the point of changing the bandages? Right? So the Mitzorah is going to be the Mitzorah is the Mitzorah. I could give up. I could say, you know what? This is not going to heal. What happens if you don't change the bandages? So the wound becomes infected, and that which is bad could already become worse. Sometimes when we recognize our tzaras, we recognize our shortcomings, right? So if I go through the steps, I find my Kohen. I go ahead and recognize that other people are my mirror. I become more empathic and more compassionate towards other individuals. So now I know what's broken. I understand what's broken. Now I want to fix it. But you know, my friends, sometimes you recognize your deficiencies and you recognize that which is broken, and you realize it's not so simple to fix it. Or it's going to be an avoda, a prolonged journey to fix it. It's going to take a little while. It's going to take a little while to be able to fix it. So sometimes a person says, well, what's the point of doing half a job? Mashiach changes his bandages. The changing of the bandage is not going to heal the wound, but it mitigates the wound. It lessens the severity of the wound. That sometimes in life, you can't fix your shortcomings, your deficiencies, and that which is broken all at once. But just because you can't fix everything all at once doesn't mean that you shouldn't at least take a small step forward. Even if I can't remedy everything or even most of that which is broken, even once I've identified it, I can't go ahead and fix it now for whatever the reason. Change your bandages. Life is all about taking baby steps in the right direction. And even though sometimes there's a desire to sprint towards the finish line, to fix everything at once, to reboot, to restart, sometimes I can do that, but many times I can't. But in the absence of a comprehensive, cathartic overhaul, change your bandages. Do something. Take a positive. I recognize that this is my tsaras. I recognize that this is my lesion. I recognize that this is my challenge, that this is my problem, that this is that which is broken. And for whatever the reason, I can't change it all right now. But what can I do? What can I do? You know, as Voltaire said, the perfect is the enemy of the good. You know, sometimes we want everything to be perfect. We want everything to, I want to do something and I want it to be totally incomprehensive. And a lot of times in life you can't do that. So, you have some people who say, well, if it can't be perfect, I don't want to do that. So, so people often say, I'm a perfectionist. So I only like to do things that I know I could do 100%. So I have news for you. That's not called a perfectionist. That's called being scared. That's called, I don't want to take a step if I don't know that I can manage everything. And the truth is, there is no process in life that you could guarantee success. There's nothing in life that you have 100% rate of success, a 90% rate of success. All you could do is try. So if you go through the steps and you discover your tzaras, and you finally, after all these years of searching, I know it's broken inside of me, and I'm ready to fix it, and now I realize that because of a variety of life circumstances, I maybe can't fix it all right now, do something. Do something. Move yourself, move your life forward, address your tzaras in some way. And even if it's just changing the bandages so that the wound does not fester more, do something. So if you bring this all together, we understand that when the Gemara teaches us that Mashiach is the Metzora, the Gemara is really giving us a little bit of the key to bringing about personalistic geula, right? Mashiach is the messenger. Mashiach is the protagonist of the messianic narrative, right? Of the redemption narrative. Mashiach is the person who ushers in a period of geula. But remember, again, there's different forms of geula. There's national redemption. There's global redemption. But there's also something called personal redemption. I don't know when Mashiach's going to come. I hope it's going to be Emeretz Hashem b'shatov u'mitzlachas tomorrow. Or today, halavai, I mean, for Erev Shabbos, halavai. But even if Mashiach doesn't come, I could bring personal geula. So how do you bring personal geula? By modeling myself after Mashiach. Mashiach is the Metzora, which means that greatness does not require perfection. Mashiach is imperfect, and yet he's great. Moshe Rabbeinu was imperfect, and yet he was great. I'm imperfect, and yet I can be great as well. But the only way to be great with all of your imperfections is to follow these 4 steps. Find your Kohen. Other people are your mirror. Channel your faults into a sense of empathy. And number 4, change your bandages. Do something. Do something to address your tzaras, even if you can't totally heal it right now. And Mashiach is like the Metzora. And that, what does the Torah say about the Metzora? Torah Kedosha says, Kol yemei asher anega bo yitma tamehu badad yeshev michutz lamachane moshavo. The Torah says that the Metzora sits outside of the camp, all by himself. Mashiach is waiting outside of the camp as well. Mashiach is just outside. He's not far away. He's not continents away. He's here. He's waiting all alone patiently, right outside of the camp, for us to be ready. And perhaps, if we internalize his lesson, if we internalize the lesson of tzaras, if we internalize the lesson of greatness with imperfection, then we can, in Eretz Hashem, find our way back to ourselves, and then in Eretz Hashem, Mashiach could, in Eretz Hashem, find his way back to us. Halavai, we should be zocha. Amen. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos, a good Chodesh, and a beautiful and uplifting weekend. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, a very special thank you to Jeremy Lassen, Maishi Abramson, for doing all of the back-end technology work, and really a great schos to be able to spend Erev Shabbos and mamish the first new moments of a new month together with all of you. Have a wonderful evening.